All right, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, getting you set for the 2019 campaign at USC. That's what we do right here. We got Matt Lowry on the line from Conquest Chronicles. You can join him right there and the rest of the staff on SB Nation covering USC football. Matt, how's it going today?
Going pretty good, thanks. Just happy that we're 2 weeks away from the season, actually. So I'm pretty actually, no, a few days away from the season.
Sure, we're getting right there. We are definitely getting right there. A couple of weeks for USC. All right, so you had this fall showcase where the Trojans hit the field. The media got to see action. Anything that necessarily stood out this weekend to you?
Well, the one thing that really stood out to me, and I think to everybody, was the wide receivers, the performance of the wide receivers, actually. And the reason why is because of the plays that they were making. You could see just how explosive they were in the new offense. And it's very telling because everybody believes, or everybody says, that USC has one of the best wide receiving cores in the country. So it was on full display. It was on full display yesterday. It was amazing to see, just to see how the plays that the receivers were making. And also another thing that stood out to me was the quarterback competition as well. It just showed that if they're looking to name a starter or look for somebody to separate themselves from the pack, really it hasn't happened. And I don't think it happened since spring practice, really. So it's really been pretty stagnant.
So, Matt, this is a situation where you've got outstanding talent, but there are all sorts of question marks on both sides of the ball. There are players that are going to be forced into duty. Secondary comes to mind that may not necessarily be ready for it, but they're going to have to step up and play. As you look over the last 3 weeks while the Trojans have been in camp, based on what you've been able to gather, what makes you feel better about this USC team, or makes you maybe a little bit more concerned? What has stood out to you?
Well, the intensity in the competition was something that really stood out to me with camp, and just basically just seeing all of that. Last year, you could tell really it was just no real competition or intensity. It was just people were complacent. Now there's a little bit of an edge. There's a little bit more intensity to the team. And I think that'll carry going into the season, because this team really wants to they really want to make an impact. They really want to prove people wrong, and they're ready to do whatever they need to do. Again, I go back to the offense as well. I think the offense is going to they're going to put points up. I think they're going to make plays. I think with the passing game, especially with the air raid, it's in a good place. It's in great shape. And I think that'll be USC's bread and butter, especially how the way they simplified things. But one thing that makes me uneasy on that side of the ball is the run game. I don't know what it is with the running game right now, but I feel like they're trying to force it, and it's just been okay. It's just been okay so far with plays here and there, but I'm interested to see how they really fix that. And they have to have a run game in order for their offense to really get going.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the Trojans. We're happy to be joined by Matt Lowry. He joins us on a regular basis to break down USC football. You can join Matt and the rest of the staff there at SB Nation's Conquest Chronicles. Looking forward to USC taking on Fresno State in a couple weeks. Matt, when you look at fall camp, when you look at what you gathered in the spring, are there a couple of guys that stand out for you that either you're thinking, okay, man, nobody knows about this guy in particular, but man, I think he's going to break out, or maybe a guy that is going to be forced into the lineup that is going to have to shine?
Well, I have two players in particular. One I've been high on since last year, and another who really had a breakout during the spring. Well, actually three, but one of them's Elijah Griffin. Everyone knows he missed spring camp because he had shoulder surgery. He had surgery on both of his shoulders, actually. And through fall camp, he's just been the best player on the field. I mean, he's been grabbing interceptions left and right. I think he has 2 pick sixes in fall camp. And I think he's a guy who is going to solidify his spot starting on the one spot at the cornerback position. Now, the other side is going to be a toss-up on who it's going to be, but I think Elijah Griffin pretty much got that spot down after his performance during fall camp. Another is a true freshman, Manure McLean. A lot of people don't know about him. He was a 3-star coming in this season into this year's recruiting class. His brother, Abdul Malik McLean, is currently on the roster as well. But Manure he's just been doing things just that you don't expect 6'4" players to do. I mean, he's using his length, his athleticism to his advantage, but he's making plays in space, something that you really don't see. And the coaching staff has been very high on him, saying that he's going to see playing time. Now, that is with his performance in fall camp, on top of the depth that USC have at the wide receiving position because of Brew McCoy's status and with Kyle Ford also not yet being cleared for full contact yet. But Manure McLean, he's been a guy that stepped up, as well as Devin Williams through the spring and fall. He's really been standing out at the wide receiving position. He's going to be somebody who many fans are not going to really think of like that, but he's going to be that guy where he steps up in a game and he makes plays, and opposing defensive coordinators are going to go, where did this guy come from?
All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down USC football. We got Matt Lowry on the line from Conquest Chronicles, so you join him and the rest of the staff there at SB Nation to get your set for USC football with the Trojans lining up against Fresno State in just a couple weeks. Matt, let's line up the season. Let's get your take on both sides of the football. Let's start on the offense. JT Daniels would expect to be the starter, but there's still a battle. There's expected to be an announcement somewhat soon from Clay Shelton in regards to Jack Sears or JT Daniels to run the offense. JT Daniels gained a lot of criticism last year for his inconsistent play, 14 touchdowns, 10 picks. But at the same time, he's the first true freshman to start at USC since Matt Barkley, and posted similar stats to Barkley's 2009. And of course, Barkley became a star. So this kid still has the ability. And when he was able to operate that air raid, the final game of the season against Notre Dame, he was lighting it up there in the first half in particular. And USC would seem to have the complement of players at the skill positions to make this air raid work. And of course, Graham Harrell is an offensive coordinator who is well versed as a quarterback and a coach in running this air raid. So what do you think?
I honestly think the JT Daniels is ultimately going to be the starter when we hit the Fresno State game. Again, you mentioned it. He got a load of criticism last year based off of, his inconsistencies and, just ill-advised decision-making. But a lot of people forget this kid was 19 years old who was supposed to be a high school a high school senior at the time. He's supposed to be a high school senior. And the offense, and you've heard some of the players talk about it too, the offense was pretty complicated. It was a lot to pick up. And so you're asking a lot for a true freshman to make plays that he's not used to really making. The air raid is a lot more simple for him. He can get the ball out of his hands quickly. I think he's going to have a pretty good bounce back season. I don't think it's going to be magnificent, but I think it's going to be effective and where he's a lot more comfortable.
So, folks, this is not going to be your grandfather's USC team where you line up a tailback 7 yards deep and pitch him the ball left and right, Charles White, Marcus Allen on down the line, or anything even that we saw against Pete Carroll or with Pete Carroll on the sidelines with a 50-50 type ratio. They're going to throw it all over the place. But still, to be successful at the level that USC is expected to be, you have to run the ball. You can't be Washington State or Texas Tech if you're going to be USC and winning Pac-12 championships. So the running back position seems to be decent, although it might be a little bit thin. Stephen Carr is obviously the headliner, even though he may not be the starter. But Matt, this rushing attack was 107th in the nation last year. Now, because of the philosophy, they're not going to have a top 10 rushing team, just statistically, but they have to be effective. Do you have any hope that that's going to be the case this year?
I think they're going to be effective, and I think the running backs will have a good usage based off of what Graham Harrell wants to do with this offense. The thing is, however, if you're looking for like a true starter, don't expect it. I think Veve Malepeai, he'll be the initial starter, but you're going to see Marquise Steps in there as well as Stephen Carr in there. I think with Carr, his style is more effective for what for what Harrell wants to do. And I think with Graham Harrell, you're going to look to see him get the ball to his running backs in space. And then with Malepeai and Marquise Step, they're going to try to go up the middle, try to go north and south through in between the tackles to get those yardage that they need. However, I will say this: USC is going to go with the philosophy of they're going to throw to open up the run. I think that's what we're going to see USC does. I think we're going to see some games where their passing attack has so much success that it opens up the run game. But I don't think it's top 10. I don't think it'll be top 10 this year. I don't think it'll even be close to top 10 this year.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down USC, courtesy Matt Lowry there at SB Nation's Conquest Chronicles. And I want to let you know that in particular, we've got a couple offers running. One in particular, myself and other YouTubers joining St. Jude's Hospital, also betnow.eu. So please, if you'd like to throw a few bucks on the games, it goes to a worthy cause and you get 50% additional. If you sign up, you get 50% additional added to your account if you use the promo code MRTVCFB, and use the link down in the description section below. Matt, is the wide receiver position the best on the team? Is that the best unit on this USC team in 2019?
By far it is. It's going to be the best unit on this team, honestly, because with the offense they're running, they're going to be relied on to make plays for them. This team, or this group with Michael Pittman, Tyler Vines, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Velus Jones, even as I mentioned earlier, Manure McLean, Drake London. These are guys who are going to make plays for this team and who's going to do outstanding things for USC. Now, if they end up getting stagnant, or if the passing attack doesn't work, then you could say USC's offense is going to be in trouble. I just gotta say, I have a hard time seeing at 12 defenses really contain or even stop this USC passing attack because of the amount of talent that USC have at the wide receiving position. It's more of just pick your poison, unless you have a secondary with 4 or 5 amazing defensive backs that can really just lock them up. But it's going to be hard to contain 4 or 5 of them at the same time on the field.
Talking up USC football with Matt Lowry from Conquest Chronicles. I want to remind everyone that if you grab the link down in the description section below, next to the hashtag SamStrong, then you can go to betnow.eu and throw some money on the games, as a lot of you like to do. But you can also get 50% added to your account at now.eu if you use the promo code MRTVCFB. And also, as you see on the screen right there, you can join our Voice of College Football community. You'll get my exclusive predictions right there. You can sign up using the link down below right next to Voice of College Football community. Defensively, the team was decent last year. They were decent. They didn't make as many disruptive plays as they had tied Clemson in sacks the season before for the national lead. And they lost a lot of that sack yardage last year, weren't quite as disruptive. They lose some of their best players when you talk Cam Smith and obviously Iman Marshall out of the secondary. And the secondary is really thin. As you scan through the defense, Matt, what do you see?
It's gonna boil down really to the defensive line. In all honesty, there's a lot of youth on this team. Last year, it was a lot of veterans on this team, and really, you could say more of the defense's mishaps came from them being on the field a lot because the offense couldn't get anything going. This year, it's a lot of youth on this team, especially in the secondary. A lot of new coaches on there. Well, if you want to count Greg Burns as a new coach, though he's been there before, but a lot of new voices on this team. I think it just boils down to the defensive line getting pressure. They're gonna have to get pressure in the opposing team's backfield. They're gonna have to get pressure with the pass rush. They're gonna have to stop the run. Everything starts and begins with them. The secondary, as you mentioned, it's thin. A lot of freshmen are going to end up playing right away. I mean, you're going to end up seeing Max Williams probably play, depending on his knee, although he was moving very well in spring and fall camp. Chris Steele, who was just ruled eligible by the NCAA, look, he's going to play a lot. You're going to have a second year of Isaiah Polamau, as well as Talanoa Hufanga, and then you have Chase Williams, who's looking pretty good. He's going to bounce from nickel to safety depending on the package. And again, USC only has two starters at the cornerback position, or two players with starting experience at the cornerback position, and Greg Johnson and Elijah Griffin. Again, it's going to be interesting to see how this team on defense plays, how they're going to look, how everything's going to go in jail. I mean, Clancy Pendergraft simplified things for them, but you're going to see some growing pains with this USC team. I think early on, you're going to see the growing pains with the Trojans youth on defense. But as the season goes, I think it's going to be a defense that gets better. But I don't expect it within the first 5 games of the season.
And that's when the schedule really hits hard. As you know, the first 6 games are brutal. There are no give-mes. So there's not the 1 or 2 FCS schools that a lot of teams play. There's not the low-level group of 5. There's a Fresno State team that is contended for Mountain West Conference championships. There's Notre Dame. There is BYU on the road. And then Washington and Oregon, a couple teams that have been off the schedule at least last season. They're on the schedule as Pac-12 North contenders and 2 of the probably top 15 teams in the country. So the schedule's rough if they can make it through the first 6. The back half is very manageable, teams that they should beat mostly. But, man, they got to get out of the gate in a hurry.
Yes, they do. And one thing to look at in that 5-game stretch, and I don't know if a lot of people paid attention to it or looked at it close in detail, but there's 3 games where USC plays Stanford, BYU, and Utah. Now, the reason I mentioned those 3 is because those are the 3 most physical teams on the Trojan schedule. You can make a case for Washington being it as well, but those are the 3 most physical teams that the Trojans have to face on that schedule. Stanford's always a physical game. It always boils down to physicality in the trenches. BYU tends to beat up on teams, and it's an early game. Then you have a Friday night game against Utah, who returns just about everybody on their defense. So if if USC, and I think they can handle Fresno State, as you mentioned, they won 10 games last year. They won 10 games last year. They are contending for the Mountain West. But if they can manage those 3 games and come out with at least maybe I would say a 4-0 or 3-1 record, then that gives you a boost heading into Washington, going to Seattle for that game, and then you go into the bye week before you face Notre Dame. I think USC could come out of this stretch in one of 2 ways. I think they'll be either 3-2 in this stretch, or I think they'll be 4-1 in this stretch. And that's my bold prediction that I'm going with. But USC is going to have a winning record coming out of the 5-game stretch.
So they can beat all those teams. They could, I don't think they would possibly lose to all of them, but they could. Each team is very capable, so there are no gimme wins. So I got to think that's a pretty reasonable, slightly optimistic, but reasonable projection on your part. And like I say, when I look at the schedule, I think, hey, if they can make it through the first 5 or 6, then it's a lot of Arizona State down the stretch, Colorado, that they can certainly handle. And if they gain the confidence of being able to compete against the Washingtons and Oregons and Notre Dames, even if they don't win all those games, then they certainly should be on a downhill slide in a positive way toward winning their share of games and possibly contending for the South Championship. Matt Lowry talking up USC. We've taken you through fall camp and season preview here. We encourage you to join Matt and the rest of the staff there at SB Nation Conquest Chronicles as we get you set for US football. Matt, we always appreciate you stopping by, man.
Thank you for having me. I always enjoy it.
Okay, Matt. I think we're good to go. I appreciate it. I'm going to slice that